this is one of the most fun ones that I've done in a while, I think. This is prospect Lamar Odom, who was drafted in '99, fourth overall. He was one of my favorite players to watch as a kid. And one of my pals recommended that I watch him as a prospect, and he was an incredibly sick prospect. Even more than he was in the league at times, like a legitimate point guard at Rhode Island, someone who legitimately brought the ball off the court often and was able to generate paint touches at like true 6'10 and 6'11. Like the fluidity, the speed, the coordination. Just look at that. Look at the off-arm discard. Look at the drive. It was always impressive to me, the way that he was able to change directions at his size. Like there are very few 6'10 strong dudes who are like legit center skilled and then can change directions that fluidly. Look how low Odom gets. His torso flexibility was really special. This was a trait that is so rare for a guy that size. He's able to get so low into the defender's shoulders and into the paint, basically at will, whenever he wanted. And his speed was really legit. Like early career Lamar Odom was so fast for a guy of that size. He could just burn even like small guard defenders on the perimeter because oftentimes because of the way he played, there were smaller guys on him, and he could often beat them off the dribble because of how preternaturally quick he was for a guy of that size. And as we kind of saw on the first play, like guards and like defenses would really pressure his handle. Like they would challenge him, and Lamar rarely folded. It was difficult to pluck his handle, despite being so large. For he would be able to change directions and cover the ball and turn his back and stuff, and use little like moves like that to get into the paint. Even if he's not scoring, it's very impressive to me the way that he's able to hold off against multiple aggressive attempts at the ball, and make his way into the painted area, which he did so often. He was, because of all these skills, such a sick transition scorer. Like with a head of steam and like a numbers advantage, he could burn past defenders, and hop into finishes with his left hand like all the freaking time. He was so good at that. And again, it was just really tough to pressure Lamar Odom, because like he was able to get into the paint, and then obviously that added on to his awesome passing, which is probably what he was maybe known most for in the NBA. An unbelievable passer. But early in his career, especially in college when he was playing on the ball, he was able to get downhill and hit these little drop-off passes in the paint as well, using his scoring gravity to unlock his passing. Again, because he was so often pressured, Lamar got paint touches, which forced rotations, and he was shrewd enough as a passer with enough vision and technical ability to consistently make these lay-down passes, which were really like great high-value passes for his teams. It just wasn't easy to guard him as a slasher, as he could use like tricky little wrap-around deliveries to get his passes into the his big men and the players cutting. It's remarkable that Lamar Odom, as like an 18-year-old, 6'10", 6'11" freshman, was like legitimately running high pick and rolls, and like creating decent shots and making solid decisions out of them, and was like a really impressive connective passer as well, which we'll see ended up coming in later in his career as well, which we're gonna have some clips of. But like he was so able to exploit these holes in defenses where he was a proficient whip passer. He had an eye for like flair and these kind of like flashy passes where he would put so much velocity onto a laser into the paint, and it was so good unlocking skip passes and like cracking holes in defenses that aren't attentive and aware and ready to help. He definitely had like a penchant to like throw these flashy passes where like he often put too much zip on balls like this, or he threw them a little too late. His processing wasn't crystal, but it certainly was really good for a guy of his size. And yeah, I mean, there were a good amount of these like this probably should have been like an easy dump to one of these players, but he just overthrows that ball. But Lamar as a passer was so fun. So fun. His scoring was really interesting, and I think it's kind of interesting that Lamar probably, at least in my evaluation, didn't really hit his ceiling as a prospect, at least how I value Odom, being a legit guy with creator flashes at that height. Like, remember, like Odom while being like a prolific scorer for his age in college. Was never really that crazy of a scorer early in his career more, and like never like made like an All-Star game or All-NBA. I know he was really awesome and probably was like an All-Star level player that wasn't just like recognized as one, but like I would have expected some of his scoring stuff to translate more maybe, and maybe develop more in different kind of ways. He was like a pretty rigid scorer and always stayed that way, where he could score in the post with his like post moves and height and stuff. But the shot I probably had more expectation for. Like, he was such a versatile shooter. Like, he would take pull-ups off the dribble like this. Not super common from three, but he definitely took them. Like, he was willing to take, like, difficult-ish, like, off-movement jumpers like this. I think just visually, like, his touch on jumpers didn't look that great. Like, he had a lot of these kind of bad, like, air ball or, like, really just, like, way, way off misses. And if you look at his like, shooting profile, like, the free throw is eh. The free throw is not great. Like the volume was eh. Solid for a guy of his size at that time. And like he took a ton of long twos. Like, but he also just like wasn't the most efficient guy in the entire world, outside of the paint where he was just so dominant. And Lamar, was like had some seasons he was up and down as a shooter. When the volume went up, as you can see in seasons like 07 and 01, like the percentage went down, so he was never really able to sustain that at like a decent volume. But like it was really interesting to watch like the stages of his career, like based on who he was as a prospect, because like early in his career with the Clippers, when he had his highest usage rate, where Lamar was actually attacking off the dribble, just wild for a guy of his size to be able to change directions that quickly, and finish like that. And was so fast attacking closeouts there. Like defenses just didn't have an answer for his speed, which I would have loved to seen use more, where he was just able to get by guys like that. But he really seamlessly transitioned into an awesome connective piece for these awesome late 2000s Lakers teams, where he was a menace on the offensive glass, and in these kind of offensive rebound situations, everyone is scrambling. The defense is scrambling. No one's in position. And usually the offense is too, but Lamar has incredible awareness and can find little laydowns to Gasol like this. And he had a very, very similar play in college as well, where he would often make plays off of his offensive boards, which was such a huge value add. And was just a really great value add against players, and playing next to players who created advantages that he could even further capitalize on, like having the know-how and the wit to like cut in front of Kobe here, and then can tap it back to the wide open Gasol. Like he was a really phenomenal playmaker throughout all of his stops. But I think like as great as Lamar was, there honestly might have been like even more upside based on like his prospect tape. Because there was really, really special, creation and on-ball stuff. But he was a phenomenal player and a phenomenal role guy on, championship level teams with his passing. He was just so scalable. Someone whose passing and cutting and finishing and rebounding and transition play added so much value next to ball-dominant stars like Kobe Bryant for many, many years. But I wonder if there was a version of Lamar that could have really scaled up and, driven higher level offense, at least to, more of an extent. But he was so sick, and this was awesome, and I hope you think so too.